The Middle East is on fire again. For the first time since announcing a truce with the United States in April, Iran has launched a massive missile attack on Israel. In particular, Iran launched ballistic missiles at northern Israel, which were intercepted by air defense systems. Israel immediately stated that tonight Iran must burn and hinted at a retaliatory strike against Iran. But then Donald Trump immediately intervened in the situation and unexpectedly for everyone began to simply persuade and beg both sides to stop and not to shoot. First, Donald Trump called on Iran to return to negotiations and stated that supposedly a peace agreement was supposed to be signed on Monday, and now this happened. And after that, he called Netanyahu to dissuade the Israeli Prime Minister from attacking Iran. But it seems that few people believe Iran's words. At the time of recording this episode, Syria and Iraq urgently closed their airspace in anticipation of a massive attack from Israel. But it is also worth noting that earlier today, Israel still attacked the Lebanese capital Beirut, risking a retaliatory strike from Iran. And at this stage, Trump was absolutely not opposed to such an attack. But here it already becomes obvious that Donald Trump's public calls for neutralization. Netanyahu should by no means attack Iran in response. This is another public game or playing to the audience. Because there are already leaks of information that, in fact, the US is now urging to suspend any retaliatory strikes against Iran in order to give negotiations a chance. And if Iran doesn't make a deal with the US, then Israel gets the green light, the Americans get involved, and the war resumes. But let's break everything down financially now. Let's review the points and organize everything. I'm Alexei Peachy. Let's discuss this topic. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in this video's description.
Thank you. Subtitles by Demon Torza.
So today, June 7th, Iran launched missiles at Israel. This was the first direct missile strike by Iran on Israel since the ceasefire on April 8th. As you can imagine, this marks a major regional escalation and threatens to derail US-Iran negotiations and resume the war, since Israel intends to respond to the Iranian attack. At the time of recording this episode, Iranian state media reported the launch of a third wave of missiles. At the same time, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that one of the targets was the Ramat David Air Base in northern Israel. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that these strikes were carried out as a warning to Israel and threatened larger-scale attacks across the entire region if Israeli strikes on Lebanon continue. Meanwhile, regime supporters took to the streets of Iran, especially in the Iranian capital Tehran, to celebrate the strikes on Israel. And today, the military advisor to Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei Rezai, made the following statement, quote, "The Islamic Republic of Iran has repeatedly stated that it will not tolerate violations of the ceasefire and aggression against Lebanon. This evening, the aggressors received their response. This response is a warning to stop their wrongdoing. Any further actions will be met with an even more devastating response and severe consequences." For its part, the Israel Defense Forces stated that sirens sounded in northern Israel due to the launch of 4 rockets from Iran, but air defense systems were activated to intercept the threat. Israeli officials stated that all the rockets had been intercepted so far. And right after that, senior Israeli officials stated live on Israel's Channel 12 that the country will respond decisively to Iran's rocket attacks. And there were even statements such as, "Iran must burn tonight." According to them, Israel cannot allow a situation where Iran fires at Israel in response to Israeli strikes on Hezbollah in Lebanon. They say these are two different stories. There is no official decision on a response at the time of recording, and it is expected that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior officials will soon conduct a security assessment and then decide whether to respond or not. But then the American President Donald Trump immediately intervened in the situation and actually started persuading both sides not to shoot. Immediately after Iran's attack on Israel, Trump stated, quote, "This certainly will not help the negotiations. We are very close to an agreement. I would say that it will be signed on Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and now this is happening. Why? My advice to Iran: you launched missiles, you responded, that's enough. Go back to the negotiating table and make a deal." Right after that, Trump stated that there would be no retaliatory strike from Israel because he is now calling the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and urging him not to take retaliatory measures in response to Iran's missile strike. And once again, at the time of recording this episode, the phone conversation between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu is still ongoing. But what's interesting is that the US is suspending operations at its embassy and consular sections in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv tomorrow, on Monday. The US Embassy has also ordered all employees of American government institutions and their family members in Israel to stay in shelters and be ready to immediately move to a protected area in case of a red alert. So apparently something is still going on. So apparently something is still expected to happen. On Sunday evening, the Israeli government itself also announced the closure of schools across the country on Monday tomorrow. The Israeli Home Front Command also instructed the population to stay close to shelters and to follow any further instructions due to the possibility of a serious escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran. It's important to consider the event timeline, especially since today is Sunday and events in the Middle East are unfolding rapidly. The fact is that on Sunday, Israel struck the southern suburbs of Beirut in response to rocket fire on northern Israel from Hezbollah. And this is where things get most interesting. Last week, Iran threatened to launch a missile strike on Israel if it attacked Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. Meanwhile, the US supported Israel's right to self-defense. A spokesperson for the US Department of Defense told Axios that American troops in the Middle East are ready to defend themselves if Iran follows through on its threats and launches new attacks. Well, new attacks have happened, but the US military has not taken action yet. And what's important is that, according to Netanyahu's office, Israel notified Donald Trump's administration before carrying out today's strike on Beirut. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that the strike was carried out in response to Hezbollah rockets fired at northern Israel. Israel's strike targeted a Hezbollah command center in Dahir. This is a Shia district of Beirut, known as the stronghold of Hezbollah. And it's important to note here that earlier this week, Trump publicly stated that he had already talked Netanyahu out of attacking Beirut. But the Israelis told the Trump administration that Hezbollah's ongoing attacks in northern Israel violate the ceasefire, which gives Israel full right to strike Beirut. Moreover, the Israelis made it clear that they would continue to strike Beirut whenever Hezbollah carries out an attack on northern Israel, and Trump remained silent in this situation. And if you remember that scandal between Trump and Netanyahu that erupted this week, where Trump called Netanyahu crazy, that scandal was actually connected to the attacks on Beirut. After a phone conversation with Netanyahu, Trump announced a partial ceasefire, which included a commitment from Israel not to attack Beirut in exchange for Hezbollah stopping attacks on cities near the Israeli border. By Wednesday, Israel and Lebanon had agreed to a full ceasefire on the condition that Hezbollah would stop its attacks and withdraw its fighters from the area south of the Litani River in Lebanon. But by Thursday, Hezbollah had rejected the proposed conditions, and it should be understood that without Hezbollah's agreement, the ceasefire remained only on paper. And now today, Hezbollah is attacking Israel, Israel in response is attacking Beirut in Lebanon, and Iran in response to the attack on Lebanon is attacking Israel. And in all of this, Trump is calling on the parties to agree to a ceasefire. As a result, Israel announced that it would intensify strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon in response to Iran's rocket launches. And now it is being reported that the US has urged Israel to postpone strikes on Iran for several days amid ongoing negotiations. It is reported that the US has conveyed to Israel that it would be advisable to wait a few days before launching a strike in order to assess the possibility of reaching an agreement. Otherwise, the parties will be able to move on to previously agreed joint actions instead of using up this option on a limited exchange of strikes. I'll leave it at that for now. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and payment details in the description of this video. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Subtitles.